Welcome to Let's Write This Movie, where we write a screenplay
while sharing the process with the internet.
I am your screenwriter, René Garcia.
And I'm your collaborator, Brian Glass.
Now, let's write this movie.
So René, how was your week?
My week was pretty good, Brian. As you know, you visited me on Wednesday, in case you forgot.
It's like Santa Claus coming to town.
Exactly. Except I was the one who bore gifts.
You did, but you did not bore.
I know. We had a great time, everybody. We smoked cigars. We watched Blade. Popped that Blade cherry for Brian. And we made a makeshift screen for my projector. Yeah. And it was a lot of fun, actually. I'm glad it worked out.
It was an adventure.
Yes, it was. It
was awesome.
Had an altercation with guards, but due to our rapier wit and charm, we convinced them, we cajoled them into leaving us be.
Yes, that is one telling of what happened.
How would you describe it, Brian?
So two guards that were mildly interested sort of stopped by and tried to chat us up a little bit and then left us alone. You know, but yeah, sure, we cajoled them.
This is why I am the storyteller, Brian.
That's right.
What is life without a little bit of embellishment?
Remember when that one guard got me in a headlock? I was like, dude!
Well, you know, Brian, luckily I know Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so you were completely safe. I had it under control.
Well, the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu went with the Brazilian dinner that we ate. Right before
delicious.
That. Very good.
Yes. So beyond that, it was also a very tough week because it had a lot of, I had a lot of limited time. I had limited time to work on this script, as a lot of people, whoever is visiting our website now here at this late hour, I did write a quick blog post about, I finally put up the pages, everybody, 10 minutes before our recording here, in any event. So yeah, I have a lot of side hustles that I need in order to pay the bills, make my rent, all of that. And, it just took up a lot of time. Plus, I had to make extra time for friendship. And I'll always make time. I'll always sacrifice for friends, even this project. Thank goodness I only have one friend. I can't handle any more.
All right, man. Well, great. Sounds like a pretty full week, though.
Oh, and lastly, so here's the big one. Would have, tried to do a little catch up today on work, but I had to drive out to Hollywood to screen Wreck-It Ralph 2. Mm-hmm. And, if I can just complain for a few, I was going to say minutes here, but hopefully it won't take that long. Driving out from Orange County to Hollywood and then driving back, watching this movie and then trying to escape from LA in real life, man, that's your entire day. It's like roughly, it's not always 2 hours to get there. Well, say it's maybe an hour, 15, hour 30, depending on construction, traffic, all of that. And then, you got this 2 hour long movie, roughly. And then, you got to escape LA. And now at that point, everyone is awake, right? Like, now the streets really are just clogged, and then you have like protests, and then you have religious zealots, and then you have homeless. It's like it's all just converging. And while it's exciting because I don't always have to deal with that here in Orange County, it's also, just aggravating as well. When I was waiting for a crosswalk, one of the cosplayers who stand on Hollywood Boulevard, he snuck up like right next to me, to my right, and he was dressed as Spider-Man, but in the black suit. And I was talking to my brother, who was my plus one, and because there was this other woman who was coming down the sidewalk towards us, who was dressed as Catwoman. So of course, hey, I got to tell my brother, hey, check her out. What do you think? Blah, blah, blah. And so as I turn around, expecting to see Catwoman approaching me, instead I got this guy in a Spider-Man outfit next to me, all silent, right? And his hand was like this, like reaching out to me, like I don't know what he was trying to do, like web slinging, I don't know. But it freaked me out because it was like, it wasn't what you were expecting to see, and he was so close and silent like a ninja. So he wasn't going to get $5 out of me, and I wasn't going to take a picture with him. And then I also saw just like the laziest Superman cosplayer. This guy did nothing to look like Superman, minus having like orangey Superman cape. It wasn't even really red. It was like an orangey Superman cape and like a blue pajama outfit. But he had like brown hair. It was like a bowl cut. And he was like thin, it was all loose on him. And he would go up to people like, hey, trying to flex. I'm Superman. Want to take a picture? I'm like, how does this guy make money? Go drive an Uber.
I mean, unless he's funny, but if he's just doing that shtick,
yeah, it was that.
That's not gonna get it done. Maybe he's new and he's not gonna last there long. Because I think I've seen Spider-Man, for years there.
Yeah, the Spider-Man, the Spider people, because there's multiples of them. They're not bad. They're not bad. Like at least these guys look fit. Like they're they're kind of thin. So I could see it. But this Superman was terrible. Anyway, so what I really wanted to say is, other than the complaining, what I would like to do, Brian, during this recording, maybe not in the middle of the episode, but at least before we sign off, before you and I sign off, is to record a spoiler-filled Wreck-It Ralph 2 review, and I'll schedule it for Wednesday because that's when the embargo lifts.
Oh, there you go. I look forward to listening to it, but of course I didn't even see the first one, so I'm not your ideal audience.
Okay. Well, there you go. Excellent.
I could play along though.
Yes.
You did what?
Exactly.
No.
Just be shocked. I'll give you cues with my voice. Can you believe they did that?
Seriously, unreal. These guys, unreal.
Anyway, Brian, I'm here.
Yeah.
I am relatively refreshed after my long battle out to LA and back. I dined on endless Korean barbecue with my brother before he left. So
one of your favorites.
Well, it's not bad. So here we are. I am full, and I'm ready to expel my thoughts today on this show.
Well, that's awesome, man. I'll tell you, when I go out to LA, that just completely wrecks me.
Yeah.
That's like Wreck-It Brian right there, that movie, because after that, I don't want to talk to anyone. I don't care what we have scheduled. I'd be like, you know what? Let's do this tomorrow because LA destroys me. Hello, LA listeners. I hope you're in the business. Otherwise, what are you doing there? What are you doing there?
Trying to break into the business.
That's what I'm saying. If you're not trying to get in the business or already in the business, what are you doing there?
Yeah.
Jeez. Wow. I tell you, I just can't do it there, man. Gets me in a mood too, as you know.
Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah.
It's always interesting. As I've said in a previous episode, I went to LA many times. Like I commuted out there to cover the entertainment industry.
Yeah.
And, I learned to pick up or build an LA sense, I guess, like what looks dangerous, where can I go for safety, all of those things.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to go with someone who doesn't frequent LA because, it's just like, they're just like a tourist, like, oh, hey, yeah, this cosplayer, he just wants to take a picture with me. It must be totally free. Let me take a picture,
I'll give him a hug because he's clean.
Exactly. Or, you just have a lot of homeless people. You got a lot of people just like trying to put their mixtape, their CD, into your hands, their demo. And it's just like, no, guys, leave me alone. It's like, you got to know the path around them or else you're just going to be tied up. They're just like waiting in line to give you their demo. It's crazy.
It's true.
But go ahead, Brian. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, that's all I was going to say about that. I mean,
all right.
You had a much more exciting week than I did. I had a great one day, and other than that, it was pretty much work and travel, and I definitely had a highlight, which was when I saw you there, and otherwise for me, it was a fairly chill week. Not a lot to report on my end.
That's why you got to embellish, Brian. You got to practice that storytelling. Exaggerate it.
I saved 3 hostages on Tuesday.
Okay.
Saw you on Wednesday.
That's a little much. a little much.
Two hostages. I don't know. I don't know where the line is.
Nah.
Nah, it is what it is, man. It's cool. I'm a family man. I don't need to embellish. It's cool. It's all good. Saw my buddy. Hung out.
All right.
Yeah. So.
Is there? Go ahead.
Do you want to get into the show?
Yeah. If there's nothing else to talk about. Oh, before we do that, actually. So, in a previous episode, I'm not sure which one, Brian and I did discuss adding or replacing. Let me rephrase this. We discussed giving certain characters descriptive names, and once I get around to putting up weekly full script pages on the site for everyone to see, you'll find that certain characters now have a descriptive name. So I think the homely woman has a name. I forgot what I named her. It's something, like I think it's just homely. Or no, Plain Jane. So she's Plain Jane, the Epitaph soldier who has lines. He's Scarface because he has a scar on his face. The old man who buys the water. I don't know. I can't remember what I named him. But his roommate is Beardy. His old man roommate is Beardy. So it's all like coming together. It's all easy, right?
I would love to get that credit. I played Beardy on Epitaph. Oh, I love that guy. He's great. When he went to, started laughing. Beardy.
So here's a 25-second story. Wow, look how accurate this is going to be. I don't know if you know this story, but have you seen Shawshank Redemption?
Yeah.
So there's a character who dies early. He's this like fat dude, and they're all betting all the regular prisoners are betting who's going to cry first when they taunt them. You remember that scene?
Yeah.
So this guy, he's the guy who cries out, and then the guards come in and kill him, basically. His character name is apparently Fat Ass. Fat Ass, right? And I don't know where he did this, and I don't even know if this story is true. It's kind of apocryphal. I think he told this story during an interview, but I can't find any of this. Anyway, apparently when people were asking him about his role, oh, so yeah, you're playing Fat Ass, right? And he's like, Fat Ass? No, my character's name is Fat Ace. What, you call me fat? He started to mess with people. And I thought that was pretty cool.
Wow, that's funny though.
Fat Ace.
Now I kind of want to watch the credits just to see if that shows up like that, Fat Ass. Wow.
That'd be awesome. Have you seen Way of the Gun?
No.
One of the characters he's a character in the beginning who has this really domineering girlfriend, and it's a very short scene. The girlfriend is Sarah Silverman. I think it's Sarah Silverman. Gosh, correct me if I'm wrong, folks watching. I'm too lazy to look it up, even though I have the internet at my fingertips. Anyway, so he's got this domineering girlfriend, and there are guys who are messing with his car, and she starts heckling them. She starts yelling at them, and then they yell something back, and she nudges her boyfriend to do something about it, and he has to go over there and fight these guys. So that's the setup. In the credits, his character name is P. Whipped. I'm like, oh my God, that's awesome.
No, man, it was whipped. Okay. Yeah.
So lastly on names here. I'm on a roll, Brian.
Wave the gun.
I'm on a roll.
Wave the Gun. I thought that was like a sequel to Wag the Dog or something. I don't know where you were going with that. Never heard of Wave the Gun.
No, it's Way of the Gun.
Way of the Gun. I think it's Wave the Gun.
No, yeah, it's got Ryan Phillippe, Benicio del Toro, Juliette Lewis, James Caan, a lot of big names. Yeah, and it's great. The writing, it's very tight, and I think it's the same guy who wrote Usual Suspects. Okay. But anyway, the writing's really tight, and the scenes, they're very simple, but they're just really well done. So another movie I hope you'll watch, or maybe next time you're in town, we'll watch it again over cigars.
There you go.
With the sides cut off. Okay, so lastly,
not of the cigars, but of the movie screen. Make sure they know.
What's that?
I was making sure they know you were talking about the screen, not the cigars.
Right. So lastly, there's this SNL skit that always stuck in my head. And it's these, I think it has Kevin Nealon. He's playing a father, and I don't know who the woman is, but they're picking out names or a name for their child who's unborn, the unborn child. Mm-hmm. And she's throwing out these regular names, and he doesn't like any single one of them because he keeps coming up with like taunts that other kids are going to come up with for this kid's name.
Yeah.
And the taunts that the father thinks are going to be used are just ridiculous. Like, oh, Tommy. People are going to call him Tommy, or something like that. It's just like, that's normal, right? And so it's just absurd. It's like, what the hell's this guy's problem? And so the punchline at the end of this skit is he answers the door because someone's ringing, and he's a delivery. And I think it's Norm Macdonald who's delivering something. And he's like, yeah, I've got a delivery for Mr. Asswipe. And the guy's like, no, that's Oz we pay. It's like, oh, okay, whatever you say, Mr. Asswipe. So, I thought that was very clever.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, Brian, that's enough of my my flexing of my memory.
Very nice.
Let us jump into the script then, shall we?
Please. So we have a bit of a shorter read today.
Oh, yeah.
Or performance today. Looks like we got about a little over about 4.5 pages or so.
Yeah, this is what happens, folks, when I don't budget time correctly. I could have written more. I really could have, because it ends unsatisfyingly for me. But I already know what's going to happen. I could have just written it down. Just tired.
Well, that's interesting you mentioned, and I'll get to that when we get to the discussion of this.
Okay.
All right. So, do you have full script page? Or
I
full
do.
Page?
All faces are hidden.
Shall we
begin? The way people like it. I speak only for myself.
All people, both of us. Here we go. Exterior, Arizona Desert Trail, continuous. Captain Jebediah Hayes, 45, rides his horse as he leads his company of men up a trail towards Fort Bliss. The report of rifle fire draws his attention, and he pauses to focus. He hears more rifle fire from the fort.
Jebediah. Man, we need to march. Double quick time. The fort is under attack.
He nods at his officers, and the company picks up speed as they cross ground quickly. Drummers help maintain the ranks. They come over a bluff and can see smoke rising from the fort a quarter mile away. Concern twists Jebediah's voice.
Jebediah. Charge!
The company roars as Jebediah leads the charge, riding ahead. Exterior, Fort Bliss, continuous. He's confused when he finds the gates open and no attackers in sight. Instead, he sees a score of soldiers firing into the barracks frantically. He rides to them.
Jebediah. Lieutenant Jones, report!
Jones is too gripped in terror to respond. He and the handful of fort soldiers keep firing. Jebediah dismounts and grabs Jones by the collar.
Jebediah. Jones! Report, damn it!
It takes Jones a moment to realize who's talking to him.
Jones. The men, sir. They won't die.
Jebediah's face screws up in consternation.
Jebediah. Why are you shooting the men?
Jones sputters, unable to speak until Jebediah shakes him.
Jones. They're eating each other, sir. And then they came for us. I don't know why I give these characters such scratchy voices. All right. That look in their eyes, like an animal. We had to defend ourselves. But when we shot them, they just got back up. We kept shooting.
Jebediah looks back incredulously. Then he hears chilling screams echo from inside the barracks. There's a streak of excitement in the screams as they get closer.
Jones. Oh, God! They're coming! They're coming! Reload and refire. Reload and fire!
You might want to back off the mic when you're screaming.
What?
You might want to back off the mic when you're screaming.
Okay.
It's clipping a little.
Sorry, everybody.
The fort soldiers fire blindly into the barracks. Jebediah's company arrives, and he begins issuing orders.
Jebediah, to officers. I want a firing line here, and another on the wall. Be ready to fire on whatever comes out of the barracks.
The drummers and officers marshal the forces into formation. Jones and his small force retreat to the firing line. Jebediah mounts his horse and positions himself behind the firing line as well. The screams from the barracks approach.
Jebediah, ready? The screams increase. Aim! They get louder.
Suddenly, half a dozen soldiers burst from the darkness inside the barracks. Some are missing facial features, like eyes. Others have flesh hanging in strips from their bodies. Nevertheless, they charge madly at the firing line.
Jebediah, fire!
The firing lines unleash a volley, and the infected soldiers fall dead. Jones and a small group of survivors reload.
Jones, to all. Reload! Reload, damn you!
The dead infected
Those shoulders, man.
They're really bad. They keep writhing.
Exactly. Head and shoulders.
The dead infected soldiers begin writhing and slowly stand, incredulous.
Jebediah, reload!
His company reloads. The undead soldiers shuffle forward.
Jebediah, aim!
Before he can give another order, Jones and his men open fire. The undead stagger back, but are undeterred. More undead emerge from the barracks, enough to unnerve the front firing line, which instinctively recoils.
Jebediah, fire!
Another volley of bullets. Undead are knocked back into the ground, but they get up, impossibly.
Jones, I told you, they don't die!
Jebediah's men look to him for guidance.
Jebediah, fire at will!
The gunfire is sporadic now, with Jebediah joining in with his pistol. Nevertheless, the undead close the distance.
Sorry, I'm just reading. Did I write nevertheless twice? Did I use that somewhere else? It feels like I used it before.
I don't know.
Okay, it's fine. Here we go. Jebediah, fix bayonets!
His men barely have time to do so before the undead are upon them. Some infected soldiers from the barracks join the pitched battle, making it difficult for the firing line on the wall to know who's an enemy. Some living soldiers get shot. Through the fray, Jebediah observes that the attackers shrug off any wound. He carefully aims at an undead's temple and fires. It falls and doesn't rise. To his men on the wall,
Jebediah, aim high!
Another volley takes heads Another volley takes heads off shoulders. Recognizing the weakness in their enemies, Jebediah's company quickly dispatches.
Take a sip, Brian.
Another volley takes heads off shoulders. Recognizing the weakness in their enemies, Jebediah's company quickly dispatches the undead with bayonet stabs through eye sockets. The skirmish ends, but with the company decimated. Jebediah dismounts and approaches Lieutenant Jones.
Jebediah, Jones, what happened here? Jones, sir, I'm not sure. Soldiers arrived last night from Epitaph. One of them had died from sickness on the way here. We welcomed them in and put the body in the infirmary. I swear, Captain, that man was dead. I checked the body myself, but this morning, during mess, there he was in the doorway, just staring at us with those dead eyes. Then the two soldiers who brought him here must have been sick too, because they were running like wild boars and just started biting the men. Not just biting, but eating the men.
Jebediah squints skeptically.
Jones, I know it sounds crazy, but the man that got bit must have picked up the disease, because they started acting just like the ones that bit them. By the time we mounted a defense, half the men were infected, screaming nonsense.
He wants to say more, but movement in the barracks catches his eye. Slowly, the sixth soldier from Epitaph emerges. Jones backs away reflexively. Jebediah draws his pistol and fires a round into the undead's leg. Hobbled, it keeps approaching. Jebediah fires another round, this time through the heart. No effect. When the undead is within arm's length, Jebediah fires it into his skull. It drops dead.
Jebediah. Jones, have the men police these bodies, then line up any of our wounded against the wall.
Jones nods and barks orders to soldiers who go about stacking bodies and helping wounded to move to a wall. Meanwhile, Jebediah examines the groups of undead he just shot, as well as the carnage around him. Finally,
Jones. Sir, the men have done as you asked. What are we going to do with the wounded?
Jebediah shoots him a grim look before addressing the men who rush to stand at attention.
Okay.
It was a little bit rough on my end, sorry.
All right. So before we get to the discussion, I would like to direct everyone to our website, letswritethismovie.com. This is where I will put up new pages every week, and let's just take a look at what that looks like. If I can find the right window. Here we are. Okay. Production at its best. So if you click any of these posts, you will see. Okay, well, this is not a good example. Let's click a different one. Here we go. Here's an older one. All right. So what you'll see here is the new pages that I put up every week. Typically, it's going to be around 10 pages. I know this week's a bit of an anomaly, so I'm going to put up 5. But whatever pages I do get done in the week are here in this PDF viewer, and you can just cycle through the pages, read them. If you have comments, if you have any feedback, any concerns about where the story's going, just leave us a comment down here below, and I will, or rather Brian and I will address them when we get together on the weekend to discuss the feedback. Now, once the show is done and published and produced, I will also put the YouTube episode here on the post, and I will also include Brian's notes so you can see what I am working with when I revise the pages. So that is our website. Once again, letswritethismovie.com. That's letswritethismovie.com. And you can also follow us on Twitter. There we are. Works like a charm. So I post here occasionally, but you can also engage. If you do engage with me, I'm pretty quick to respond. So if you have any other thoughts about the script, or you just want to comment on our project, please, leave a message here. Tweet us, DM me, whatever you want to do. I'm always happy to talk to fellow creatives. And this is also where you can keep up with our project. All right, so let's get back to the script. Here we are.
Hello.
So I don't
Renee,
know.
Before we get too far into this, I have a request.
Okay.
So, what are we, like 62 pages or so?
62.
So if you write the full 120 for the next 58 pages, could you do me a favor and just omit the word soldier? Or soldiers, as it may be. It would really help me in terms of the action reading.
You got it, Brian.
As much dialogue as you want.
No, that's fine. We'll do. No one is a soldier now.
That's not going to cripple your story at all, will it?
No, come on. So, I'm not sure if it's me, if I did something, or if you've adjusted your seating position a little bit, but there, a little more. Oh, yeah.
That's where I was, sort of. It's fine.
Does
that work?
No.
Does this help?
No,
Does this help?
That.
Where do you want me? Over more?
That's perfect for me.
Okay.
Hang on, I want to check one more thing then, if that's the case. Okay, interesting. It's the wonders of technology. It's like you think you got everything locked in, and then things change. It's weird.
That's why they call it wonder. Like, I wonder what the hell happened there.
All right, Brian, lay it on me.
All right, man. So that was not a very good read for me, by the way. You wouldn't think that I actually practiced, and I did.
You're fine.
Anyway, do better next time. So before I get into the actual notes, I don't know if I can articulate this really well with regards to these pages, but I don't have a lot to really say in response to these.
Yeah.
And I mean, we have some interesting characterization in terms of the new character, Jebediah. But most of what happens is really beats, things describing the action. And it's kind of moving it along, towards towards a kind of an inevitable end. And I think what you wrote in terms of the action is really clear. So I feel like I have more to contribute when it comes to writing or talking about character, relationships, and things like that. So what I have today is really kind of very small.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just
I figured.
kind of set an emotion. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I can certainly go through those things if you'd like. So if you want to go to the bottom of 58, this is our first graph here, describing Jebediah Hayes. And when I first read it, I had to take a little bit of a double take because we know he's riding his horse, leading the company of men. But I was thinking, just for some reason, that the company of men was also on horseback. So you might want to just put in here that they're on foot. That the men are on foot, just so it's very clear.
Sure.
Because I had to go back and reread it again.
So really briefly, if I can address that.
Yeah.
So you gave me some great notes. You did some very good research on, names of troops or names of amounts of troops. I don't know how to describe it.
And a breakdown of a battalion or something.
Yeah. But, I kind of built on that research. And, what you gave me was for cavalry. And I had always imagined that this was going to be an army company. Or an army troop, an army group of men, or that division of the military would be the army, right? So, the army is always on foot, and I was looking up, what those groups are called, and they're called companies rather than like the squadron, or the other, breakdowns that you gave me, and so while to the layperson, company may not be clear enough, I'm hoping. It'll be clear. I guess what I'm getting at is I was trying to economize the amount of characters by just saying company. Yeah. But hey, you're absolutely right. If it's not clear to a reader who isn't expected to be a script or who isn't expected to be an expert, then maybe I need to adjust that so that it is clear that it's the army and they're on foot.
Yeah, I mean the good news is you got 3.5 lines on your 4-line minimum, so. Or maximum, rather.
There
so
you go.
Got room there for it.
3 words, 4 words.
On foot, 2 words. Okay. So I really have nothing until we get into page 60. And even there is a very small question here. So you mentioned several times that they're in the firing line.
Yeah.
And then under where Jebediah says fire right in the middle of the page, it says the firing lines unleash a volley. And that was the only time I went plural. And I just want to make sure I was visualizing this correct. Is it lines of men you're visualizing or a single line?
So there are 2 lines. Well, okay.
Kind of his and his.
I assume that that when we have a firing line, and I don't even know if that's the correct terminology for the way they fought in the Civil War.
Yeah.
Which I assume that strategy, I guess that's what we call it. The strategy of standing in lines to fire at the enemy. I assume that carried over into this period, which is 10 years or so after the Civil War ended. And I'm assuming a firing line is more than just a single line of men. Like it's probably like 3 rows of men. Like maybe the first row is down on their knees, and then there's another row right behind them, and that would be considered one line of men firing. So I don't know if that's really how it works. But what I envisioned was that you had a firing line, however deep that was, 2 rows of men, 3 rows of men. And then you also had another firing line on the wall for higher elevation. And so when the zombies charge the firing line, they're charging the guys on the ground.
Okay. Yeah, I understood they were on the ground. I didn't realize there was one like higher up.
Yeah, Jebediah orders his officers to put men on the wall at the top of 60.
Okay, so Yeah, I guess I don't see that, but I do remember. I remember reading that he puts the men on the wall, but I thought that was more of a position. I didn't realize it was high up on the wall. I thought it was just like against the wall, so nothing can get behind him. That's how I was reading it.
Okay, interesting. Okay, well then that needs to be made clear.
Okay. So this is more of a question now. Again, in the middle here, right when it talks about the infected breaking through. So you use the word burst, like they're bursting from the darkness and they're charging madly, right?
Yeah.
So when I heard that, I thought these zombies are just like, well, we just went out of focus, dude. There you are. I kind of like saw it as they're approaching very quickly now. This is like, I don't know if it's superhuman speed or if it's just fast or what it is, but
they're running.
They're running. Okay. So I think you might want to be real specific here, because the reader who is realizing that they're reading a zombie flick now and seeing people turning maybe thinking about, digging into their own understanding of how zombies are, and they're trying to figure out what kind of zombies these are. Are they going to be the ones that are coming slowly and getting shot, or are they super fast like the 28 days, or World War Z? What am I looking at here? So you might want to just be real specific in terms of the speed, because when I read burst and madly, that told me that they're moving quickly.
Yeah, they are.
Okay.
They're not dead yet. They're not zombies yet at this point.
Right.
So I guess, I didn't consider that. I think you're right. I do need to clarify that. So I'll get to what I want to say, the backstory to this a little later, but I did pause while I was writing this. One of my challenges was in the education of the audience that there is a distinction between infected and the zombie. And I wasn't sure how explicit I needed to be in saying that. And just like, almost like just directly to the reader, hey, there's a difference.
Mm-hmm.
So there we are. I thought just suddenly starting to use the word infected and then moving into undead as a distinction later. I was hoping that could be a clever way of educating the audience and the reader without having to explicitly say, hey, dear reader, this is what's happening.
Right. Because when they become zombified, right, that's when they're going to be working or moving very slowly. And it's kind of like wave 2 of each person.
Right.
Okay. So I think to some extent it needs to be explicit, whether that's, one character talking to another and explaining what the hell is happening here. How is this possible? Like, I guess the way I saw it, and I'm going to jump for a second here, because it kind of ties in this piece in 62, when Jebediah is basically trying to figure out, how to kill him systematically. He's taking like this, almost as like a scientific approach. You're like, okay, I'm going to shoot him in the leg. That's not doing it. I'm going to shoot him in the heart. Okay, that's not it. All right, it's the head. Now I know. I've got the rules. I understand. I can tell my men to aim high. That to me was a clever way of explaining what was happening and how to kill them. So if there's a way to translate that kind of idea into infected versus zombies in a clever way, that I would definitely suggest that, because to me honestly it's still a little bit unclear.
Okay.
But I did like this one. I thought that was really cool. In fact, I thought that was cool because not only are he's explaining what's happening, I can just really see this guy. Like, here's a guy who's earned his captain stripes, right? And the way he's sitting there next to Jones, who's just like, out of control, so like, scared out of his mind. And he's just like, all right, let me just shoot him in the leg. Nothing there. And he's cool and collected. He's earned his stripes. You know what I mean? He's seen the world. He's seen this, and he's got that wisdom of battle, that battle fatigue. I just thought it really kind of spoke to the character very quickly. We don't hear a lot from him necessarily.
Right.
But it's just like, he's a badass, right? Because of just how he handles this. I was like, that's cool, and it's done through his actions. And that to me is a very interesting way to build the character. You're not, because you don't learn a lot from him just through what he's saying.
Yeah.
That to me was just like, it was just a very concise way to explain that this guy, he's been around and he's a leader.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, that was the highlight for me for these 5 pages was definitely that scene, just so you know.
Oh, no, great. And, this section, and I'll say even a bit of the last episode, the last section we discussed, this is the educating part of the script of the movie. Yeah. And I liken it to The Matrix, The Matrix 1, one of my favorite movies, probably my favorite action movie. Well, maybe, I don't know. It's at least in the top 5. Anyway, one thing I really like about The Matrix is that as soon as Neo is brought into the real world and he has to go through the training and all of that, not only is Neo learning, but we, as the audience, we are also learning with Neo. And there is a lot of information that the audience has to absorb quickly. For a lot of people, this is like, they've never thought about, like philosophy, like Descartes, like what is real? Like if you had a dream, how can you tell the difference between the real world and a dream world, right? So you're diving into a lot of that, and this is all compacted into 30 minutes. I mean, I think I timed it. I think it's roughly 30 minutes of the movie is just learning about the Matrix and I know Kung Fu, and doing the big jump and all of that, right?
Yeah.
So I'm hoping I'm able to have something similar here in a shorter amount of time.
Right.
I don't know what else to say.
Well, the way they did it, though, it wasn't just them talking.
Right.
It was all you're seeing everything and experiencing it, and he's experiencing his revelation. I mean, that was all really cool. I love that whole part as well. Where he gets downloaded into the fully white room, and he's like, "You think that's air you're breathing?"
Yeah.
Condescending.
Stop trying to hit me and hit me.
Yeah. Anyway,
I know what you're trying to do. I'm trying to free your mind. Let's just recite the whole movie, Brian. That'll be the rest of this episode.
Well, actually, I don't have a whole lot. I do love when you give me these things to read, like, bayonet stabbing through eye sockets. I'm like, that's pleasant. Thank you, Renee. But it's good. Again, that gives the director and the reader a very clear understanding of where you're going with this.
Right. Okay. Well, let me just jump into a couple things here. So I actually wrote more pages than this. This should be maybe another 2 pages longer, but I excised them at the last second. Well, in the last minutes before I sent this to you. And
so wait, when you say that, is it a continuation of the scene?
It's a scene before we get introduced to Jebediah.
Oh, okay. So it's like before this.
At the very end of our last episode, when the zombie is starting to walk towards the Epitaph soldier, towards Scarface.
Yeah.
Right? And he sways side to side like a ship on a rough sea.
Yeah.
Or like that Ariana Grande song. Got me walking side to side. No? Do you know that song, Brian?
I do not.
Oh. I think the song is about having sex with a dude who was like so rough that she has to like walk side to side now because it was such a rough night. This is the state of pop music today. Anyway, so I actually that scene is actually continued for about another page and a half, where Scarface gets bitten, and this is more education for the audience, where Scarface gets bitten on the neck, and his fellow soldier comes to help him, pulls off the zombie soldier, right? And he's asking Scarface, "Hey, are you okay?" And Scarface starts yelling, "Yes, sir, no, sir, yes, sir, no, sir," right? In line with how the other infected people in Epitaph, they revert to like the last things that they were talking about, or like something that is most familiar to them. They just that's their verbal communication now. Right? So it's kind of like a through line that, okay, the infected people act this way.
Right.
And then we see he attacks, the newly infected soldier attacks his friend, and then they both burst into the mess hall, and then it's pandemonium, and we can see how the infection starts spreading through the other soldiers. And so I wrote all of that out. I talk about how Jones comes in with his men. They start trying to fire. You know, it's pandemonium. It's sloppy. Certain soldiers get killed by friendly fire. All of that. And then we cut to Jebediah, who hears the report of rifle fire. And he knows, okay, there's trouble at the fort. So I was happy with it, or I was content with it as it was written. But then I thought, well, I have this speech. I got to the point where Jones starts explaining what happened, because he has to let Jebediah know, right? Mm-hmm. And I thought, okay, well, the audience just saw that. Why does Jones repeat it all? You know? And so I thought, well, he has to tell the captain that that is necessary speech, right? That is necessary dialogue.
Yeah.
Why don't I remove the scene before where there's the big fight and all of that, and Jones just explains it? And, you know, I think it could be more powerful that way. You know, when you hear this crazy story from a man who is crazed by terror, that can be in the right hands of an actor and the director. I think that can be, you know, perturbing. And then to follow that up, you know, with this attack, I think, you know, I just think it's more powerful that way. But maybe it won't be. And the parts I cut out, I put in this kind of like placeholder file. So if I need to put it back in, I can do so.
The parking lot.
Yeah, exactly. I parked it, Brian.
All right. A couple comments on that. First, right before this, we've seen some small scenes of people being attacked, you know, shorter scenes. But we have spent time in the in the town, and I think that having this happen outside the town in the way that it's described here, and the way it can build like additional suspense, like, oh, this is even beyond the town's borders, I think is strong. I think it's stronger than showing it personally. I think we just showed it. They didn't say, they did, you know, the people would infer and like, okay, I can see that this is bigger than just the town. But I think that to kind of unveil that in the way that it is done here, I think it's a little bit stronger, because now it's like it kind of raises the stakes a little bit more by making the audience wait for it and understand and try and figure out what's happening through the eyes of Jebediah. So I think it's a better choice that you made, first off. Secondly, to me, there's kind of like, I know that we're going to eventually have two camps, you know, within Epitaph that eventually come together, but I feel like the movie belongs there as much as possible. So to have a scene here that explains what's happening and it sets up what they're going to do, right? Because I think it's Jebediah who's going to probably make the decision to cordon off the town, right?
Yeah.
So the logic of that I think makes sense, but spending as much time within Epitaph and not away, I think is also a good choice. And totally. So I think this is a quick way to do that and not deter from the story, rather.
Yeah, no, you know, this is I consider this to be a necessary component to make the script work, in that part of any successful horror, in my opinion, is isolation. So, you know, people in horror movies, they're always like isolated in space. They're isolated in, you know, some kind of, summer camp where they don't have access to a vehicle to drive away from Jason,
right,
or whatever, right? They're in a submarine or whatever. They can't just run away. They actually have to face the monster.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're in a town where there are no walls and you can just walk out, you know, what forces you to stay in the town? You have to have this external force, which, you know, conveniently is going to be the military.
Yeah.
Now, this is really the only time we're going to see Jebediah until he gets to the town to surround it, and it's already nighttime, and it's time to just, you know, scorched earth.
Right. That's what I thought.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
my concern, and I know I haven't written it here yet, but we're getting right to it, as you can tell from the read through.
Yeah.
Jones wants to know, what are we going to do with the wounded? And Jebediah, he already has it in his mind. Like, look, it took all of this to kill, these, I don't know, a handful of attackers, but, we'll say a score of attackers. And it decimated the company. Decimated. So a tenth of the company is now dead or going to die.
Yeah.
He is going to make this decision to execute the wounded because he believes what Jones is telling him. Mm-hmm. And he's going to make this call. Now, he's about to give this speech to his men about, we're facing the most dangerous foe that we've ever fought, something like that, basically to make it okay that they're going to kill these guys who, for all intents and purposes, look alive, right? And have only suffered superficial wounds.
Right.
My concern is we've just met this character 5 minutes ago. Does it make sense? Will audiences buy that he's going to order his men to execute these other soldiers? Is my concern. I mean, this is a real quick turn here, right? Like,
it's a real quick turn, yeah.
Like, I'm setting him up to be a rational guy, smart guy. He doesn't even really know what's happening with these soldiers, right? Like, he's got the ramblings of a madman. Yes, it's strange. Like, they don't understand the concept of zombies, right? So why not try to save the men first? And, actually, I'm toying, the devil on my shoulder. Well, I don't even know if maybe I shouldn't use these metaphors, but the voice in the back of my mind is like fighting me within the script or through the script because I'm already writing some dialogue for an infected or a bitten soldier who is going to plead with the captain, I feel fine, don't kill me. If it's a disease, why don't you just amputate my arm? And, I want to live kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And these are all like reasonable requests, reasonable arguments. Why wouldn't a captain say, okay, yeah, let's try chopping off your arm first before we kill you entirely? Now, I'm going to cheat. This is my answer to that. I'm going to cheat. Okay, while you think about that. What I'm going to do is while Jebediah he's already ordered his men to aim at these soldiers who are wounded. And maybe Jebediah will start to think like, oh, hey, maybe this soldier has a point. But the soldier who is bitten in the neck, standing next to the soldier who was bitten in the hand, this soldier bitten on the neck will be farther along in his infection. And before the captain can make a decision, this guy who's infected kind of turns. Mm-hmm. And he charges at the firing line, and they instinctively fire and just kill everybody. Because they're scared.
I like that I like the idea that Jebediah is the one who's making the call, though, versus the reactionary type of piece.
I hear you. I mean, it doesn't sound like if I was a captain of a soldier, I had someone who's under my command, I wouldn't want them to countermand me, to question my authority. On the other hand, if my authority is to kill him, if that's the order, if I was the soldier, I don't care what your rank is. I want to live.
Right. I guess the argument can be made that he's assessing the situation very quickly. He's already got in his head what's happening. Then he's doing the systematic understanding of how to kill them. So he's definitely processing very quickly. So he could make the decision to shoot everyone, at which maybe Jones blanches or something, and he could say that Jones is he's a second, his guy just underneath him, right? And he could
one
say
of his
something,
officers, yeah.
Yeah. He could say something like, if anything happens to me, you don't hesitate for a second to take me down or something like that. Like, he's just utilitarian. We need to get this done. I don't care what it takes. This is the decision I've made. And there's no room for dialogue here. He could just be, dead set.
I like that.
Yeah.
All right. Let's roll with that.
All right. Because when I got to the end here, I was like, you did it to me again. Is there more coming?
Yeah.
But then I read it again. I'm like, it's kind of neat that it's not said here. So I was thinking this. And I like the idea of what you're saying with, the guy pleading, because even though I kind of like where this ends and where I thought it was going to be picked up later, I think that would be a really strong scene that you're talking about. But where I thought you were going to go was that we're not going to see him again until, they're basically surrounding the city, and maybe Jones is complaining to him about how harsh he's being, and he's got to say, there's no exception from this. We're not going to mess around. We don't even know what we're dealing with, and we're not going to let it take any more of our men. So he's kind of taking the hard line. You learn that he did what he's going to do, and the audience kind of fills in the rest. But I do like the idea of, you could actually kind of still have that. He can have the scene where he takes them down, and then you don't see a reaction after that, and maybe Jones is saying something to him as they're getting to Epitaph. I don't know why we have to do this. These people didn't do anything, or, I don't even know if this is where it came from necessarily, or how do we know that these men, that everyone in there is infected, and he could say something like, we have to assume that they are at this point. You saw how fast it spread. I'm sure I'm sure something like this figured out, but this is at least where my head went, when I was reading these pages.
Yeah, no, that is more or less where I want to go. I wanted to show that the goal I was trying to accomplish here is that Jebediah needs to be shown as not necessarily as a ruthless person, but as someone who is willing to make the hard calls when it comes to, we'll say, the greater good. And this will be evidence of that, because we're not going to see him for a long time. Well, maybe not a long time, but for a while. And I just want that to be, since we don't have a lot of time with him, I want that to be the thing that the audience hangs on to. And then when they're in the town, or they're surrounding the town and starting to burn it down, and survivors are running out for help, and he orders his men to just kill them all, we can have that exchange with Jones or a different officer, but probably Jones, since we've already established him. And then we can have, what you said. So, a lot of possibilities here, a lot of potential for good exchanges.
Totally, yeah. Anyway, I love the way he's drawn here. I think it's strong, but I do like the idea you're saying about having that individual soldier plead. I think that could be a great scene, pleading soldier.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that's basically what I have on these pages, man. I do have kind of a broader point I wanted to talk to you about with regards to this type of film, because I know we're talking about it being a horror / zombie movie, but there's a lot of action, right? And as I watch more and more movies, I've become, I would say, acutely aware of the time between plot and action scenes. Those directors who are very much setting up the plot to get to the next big action scene. Oh, look, it's been 5 minutes. I better put another action sequence in here, or I'm going to lose the attention of my movie viewers. And since your movie has so much action, how aware are you of timing those beats in, or how purposeful are you in spacing them out? I'm just kind of curious where your head is on that.
I'm totally unaware. I write the action. I write the actions as I see them. If it's a gunfight, it's a gunfight. If it's they're walking around town, they're walking around town. That's it. That's how I write. Now, there are key scenes. Like, this is a key scene for me, where I need to show the enemy, which are the infected and the zombies, are very dangerous, and when pitted against a well-armed force, that they are still dangerous. And so I think I've set the stakes really high as far as the danger level here.
Right.
So yeah, like I said, this is a key scene, but I'm never conscious about, I've written 10 pages, let's have a gunfight, or anything like that. I want the overall concept to be engrossing on its own. There we are.
Okay, well, that's good to know. Some movies, it's like blatant. Even movies I enjoy, like I just watched Incredibles 2, I was really aware, that this is like, it's been a couple minutes, been a few minutes now. They're probably going to help. There it is. There's the big action scene. Okay. And I mean, a lot of the prequels in Star Wars, I think were really blatant about that. So not necessarily all good movies or bad movies, but I think it's pretty common. And in fact, as I was reading this here, there's that whole scene where you have, it's basically when they fix bayonets, and then there's a little description of what happens in the melee there.
Yeah,
that could be 5 minutes in some director's hands. That whole fight that happens. You never know what you're going to get there, or it could be like very quick and just a few shots. But I kind of think that the director's going to make it their own there, and
I hope so. I think this is a cool sequence. Yeah. And I mean, I don't know that we've ever seen essentially what boils down to Civil War soldiers fighting off a zombie horde. And
right.
I'm drawing off my viewing experience of the movie Glory and other Civil War movies I've seen. I used to study the Civil War when I was in school. Like I really loved reading about it, especially like Gettysburg. Anyway, and in Glory, in one of their first skirmishes, they have to fix bayonets. I hope I'm remembering this correctly. But anyway, and I just thought, wow, that is so awesome that after these guys have shot at each other, it now comes down to this just like brawl. You have to fight face to face. Like how freaky is that?
Yeah.
So, and I don't know. I also feel like when there's a call for bayonets, it's like, oh, this is it. The enemy is now within arm's reach. So, this is the last ditch.
Yeah.
So there we are.
Now or never. Yeah, now or never. This is the last chance. Yeah, I get that. Plus, I think it's so much more personal.
Totally.
It's become, when you're shooting at someone, it's not. I mean, it's the stakes are even raised for them as they're doing this because there's real carnage that's taking place now.
Right.
On both sides.
Yeah.
That was cool. Yeah. So that, like I said, that's all I have on notes for this. And I was interested in that whole action thing because this is a lot of action and, please don't spoil any more of what's about to happen because I know we're sort of sticking to the opening outline, but I know that you flushed out so much more and you didn't want to share a lot of that because of what's going to happen. So I'm guessing we're going to get back to the town now, which I'm excited about in the next pages. And I can't wait to see what's going to happen there, man. And that's where I'm probably going to sink my teeth in too, because I think we're going to get back to characterizations, relationships, and that, the drama that's going to happen there. Yeah.
You don't like this dynamic between Jones and Jebediah?
It's great, but I mean, it's, there's not much I can say about it. It made sense,
All right. Yeah, and I definitely need to come up with some better voices here. This whole scratchy voice thing is it's just hell on my throat.
Well, they've been in the infantry for so long, and that's just how it is. It smokes their cigarettes.
Exactly. We get some more cigars.
Yeah.
All right, Brian. Well, I've already plugged the site and our Twitter. I hope everyone who's watching will visit us and read our pages and give us some feedback. We would love to include it in our discussions. And if there's nothing else, Brian,
I think that's it, man.
Then we will see you in the next episode.
All right. So before we go, I do have a question for you. I was thinking about before we started this project, before we started recording, and any of it just had this blossom of an idea. You said you did have a script in mind, which is Epitaph. One thing that you mentioned to me was that you were a little concerned that you were going to be self-editing your writing due to the state of, let's call it political correctness. You felt that some of the characterizations you had were going to offend. And I just feel, as I've read through this with you now, I mean, unless there's something else big coming, I felt like everything I've read wouldn't really offend necessarily. I felt like it was of the time, of the nature of the movie. So I'm curious if you feel like you've had to alter your path at all, or had to do any of that self-editing in writing what you've written so far.
No, not yet.
But it's coming?
Well, no, at this point, I don't know that I will. I was never going to, I never had it in mind to be stereotypical of any of the, we'll say, protected class races, or groups that are represented in this movie. My concern is that you never know what someone is going to be offended about, and unless they are presented in like the most pristine of lights, I was worried that there might be an audience out there who would get upset and basically just cause trouble, not necessarily for the film, because that's a pie in the sky idea, but for this project. And okay. I don't know if that's because we just don't have the audience that I was envisioning quite yet. But at this point, I feel perfectly safe to just write.
Good, because that was my hope all along, that you wouldn't censor yourself and you would just be, just have your voice come through in terms of what you felt was appropriate for the characters. I mean, I got to imagine it's two characters you're talking about, Ray and Chief, right? Is that who you're?
Well, maybe possibly Long.
Oh, really?
And then there's also the characterization of some of the women. I mean, there's a concern, now that I'm thinking about it, there's a concern that possibly there isn't enough dialogue or enough scenes with women. Like, right. This is a male-centric film.
Yeah.
And look, I'm not purposefully trying to make it male-centric. That's just the story I had in mind.
Yeah. You have two male leads.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just what it is.
Well, what's interesting, and this is maybe a 2-minute story here, but I'm a big fan of Twilight Zone, and I love the stories that Rod Serling wrote. And I had the privilege of borrowing a friend's box set of Twilight Zone DVDs. And since I don't have TV, or I don't have any service for my TV, my entertainment was watching all of the extras on these DVDs and all the different, physical media that I have. But anyway, there was an interview that not an interview. There's this a little piece that's added. This isn't even like a special thing on the DVD. It's actually part of an episode where Rod Serling addresses the audience and says that some criticism has been given to him that he doesn't write women well. Like, I guess all the stories are male centric, and he felt the need to explain, hey, I've been accused of this. I'm paraphrasing, obviously, didn't quite say it that way, but
right.
You can expect some female driven stories soon, something to that effect. And so even back then, when was the Twilight Zone? Like the 50s, early 60s?
Probably. Or the end of the black and white.
Even back then, there was pressure, right, to represent certain groups.
Yeah.
And, more power to him if that's what he really wanted to do. I don't want to, as an artist, as a creator, I don't want to have to work under that kind of pressure. I just want to create. I want to tell the stories I want to tell. If it happens to be about a woman, so be it. If it happens to be about men, then accept that as well. That's all.
Right. Well, yeah, I of course am in a position where I've read your other work, and it certainly, it certainly represents other genders very fairly, and so I think it's just not in service of this particular story you're telling. So anyway, I didn't know. I had a feeling that you had some trepidation going in terms of what you're going to write, and I was the one who's encouraging you to just be yourself and write whatever you want, and we'll deal with it. If there are some issues, but I don't know. I feel like the characterizations have been great, and I don't know. I didn't really see any of the issues you're talking about, so I was just curious. These are things that as I'm reading more and more, I'm like, what was he worried about? Or did he already take that out, or were there lines there already and they were difficult? And just wanted to, because since I know more than the audience does, in terms of this, since we had some discussions obviously before we started this, I was just interested to hear the take.
Okay, well, that's how I feel, and hopefully it doesn't change.
Yeah, there you go. Good. Don't ever edit yourself.
Once I'm paid, once I'm a paid screenwriter, we'll see, Brian.
Then edit yourself till you get paid more.
There you go.